Hey there. Are you tired of waiting for the next episode of It's Probably Not Aliens? Well, we've got some good news for you. On Nebula, our streaming service, you can get access to all our episodes a week early. That's right, you'll never have to wait again to hear Scott and I debunk the latest ancient astronaut theory or get a movie fact wrong. But that's not all. Nebula is home to dozens of content creators we know you like, so you can find all your favorites in one place. Plus, we post content on there that you won't find anywhere else. And the best part? By signing up for Nebula at nebula.tv/probablyNotAliens, you're directly supporting the show and both of us. So don't wait any longer. Join Nebula today and listen to the next episode right after this one. This is a really good and solid professional podcaster's way to do it. So it's been like, what, 2 months since we recorded an episode together?
Yeah, it's been a bit. It's been a while. Thanks for being patient, everyone, while we got our act together a little bit.
So how was your spring?
Gosh, the whole of spring. It was pretty good. I made a video.
Yeah.
How about you? That's all I did.
Pretty good. I think I made one video too.
Excellent. Look at us thriving. And the reason we took a break is so that we could spend more time doing the things that actually make us money, like making videos. And we did one video each.
I did one video and spent a good amount of time applying for jobs.
That is also true.
But I do have, on the topic of fuck ups, I think I need to talk about one of the most funny fuck ups that I found out about that happened back in May.
Okay.
All right. This is going to require a little bit of preamble, but everyone on this show probably knows that I am what I would call a medium-sized fan of Warhammer 40K.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Just for my own reference, that's like fantasy, but in space.
What if fantasy was in space and also it was a critique of fascism and religious dogmatism, and then also was like dystopian and dark, but like to such a comically large degree that it's like a mix of heavy metal and funny?
Cool.
Warhammer 40K mostly is a setting that is dystopian to such ludicrous scales that it's funny. That's like the main way that I think about it.
You're turning me into a medium fan.
The main thing, though, is that it has, I haven't read any of like the hundreds of novels published in it, and I don't play the game because you have to basically be a multimillionaire in order to be able to afford the miniatures for that game.
Gotcha.
But I do have a tattoo. I have a Warhammer 40K tattoo, which not a lot of people know about. But, okay, so a couple months back.
Hey, hold on 1 second. If you have a tattoo of something, you're more than a medium fan of that thing.
That's fair, but I also have not like, I like a lot of it, but I haven't like consumed a lot of its like media. Like I know there's like, I haven't read.
Well, it has consumed a part of your body.
That is true.
So
to be fair, it's Scutch art for the most part.
All right, fair enough. We love Scutch around here.
I have Scutch literally on my skin.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the story. Right, one of the things that's happening is that, as you know, Henry Cavill, Witcher Superman.
Cavill. There's no R in his name.
I know.
I don't think.
I have to do.
Oh, you're calling him Carvel?
Harvey Cavill.
Harvey Cavill.
Harvey Cavill, notable Superman and also gigantic nerd, walked away from The Witcher either because he didn't. Nobody actually knows why he walked away from The Witcher. He stopped being Witcher. They recast Witcher to a Hemsworth, one of them.
He witched his last witch.
He witched his last witch. So the first thing that happened is he was like, I think it was like, I'm done doing Witcher because it looks like they want me to be Superman again. And he came back and did that cameo in Black Adam. And then immediately Warner Brothers was like, nah, we're not doing it anymore.
We're doing it. Reboot.
Yeah.
Reboot.
And so all of a sudden he was like, well, shit, I just quit my Netflix job to be Superman again. And then it all got fucked up. So apparently what happens is the Amazon swooped in and decided to pick up Hammy Camel to basically be like probably the star, but also like a major producer in a Warhammer 40K TV show, which is fine. He looks like a Space Marine, so that's fine. But of course, the whole problem is that if the show is going to be focused around Space Marines or Custodes or whatever they're going to do, they have a major issue, which is that in this like hilariously dystopian fascist society, they're like uber genetically engineered super soldiers are all men. So they're like, well, we're not going to be able to do a show where all the main cast are men, so we're going to need to change the lore a little bit. So the Warhammer 40K people were like, actually, here are some women who are part of this like elite group of dystopian dystopian fascist soldiers in the far future.
Sure.
And you can imagine exactly how the fan base reacted to this.
Oh, goodness. Well, I think, right? If history has told me that the internet really likes and has no problems when women are involved in things.
Especially nerdy things that used to not have women in them.
Yeah. People are super chill about it. No one gets upset about it. Everyone is very normal about it, right?
Yeah. So after being extremely normal about it, the internet then went snooping around, trying to figure out what was next. And one of the things that came up is that I think, now I'm kind of treading into some stuff that I only really know a little bit of, but like somebody who is associated with Warhammer 40K has sort of branched off and started his own studio and has his own like sort of tabletop game in production right now.
Okay.
And it's like this really cool, also like over the top, hilariously dark setting, like kind of the same idea as Warhammer 40K, but it takes place in like an alternate history version of the year 1914 where World War I is happening, but it's between heaven and hell, where like a group of crusaders, like Templar knights, accidentally opened a portal to hell in Jerusalem, and basically heaven and hell have been fighting each other in like over the top, hilariously dark ways for 800 years or something. It's an extremely cool setting. The art is absolutely mind-bogglingly amazing because it's like a mix of like medieval, like how like Catholics have like sort of like, if you leaned into like the spooky side of Catholicism with like the bones and like the gothic stuff, like you could really make some like cool looking things. So it's like, imagine that plus Crusader imagery plus like World War I, and you can picture this is like a pretty wild thing.
Okay. I promise listeners, he's getting somewhere.
Yeah. So a lot of the people who were really mad about the WOMs being in the space game, we're like, okay, this is like a new and growing fandom. It's a new game. Like, let's like get on the ground floor and make this like the anti-woke Warhammer and like get in.
Okay.
So like they joined the Reddit en masse, they joined the Discord server en masse, and they were like, this is going to be our anti-woke Warhammer. What they didn't realize is that the people who make Trench Crusade is what it's called. The people who make Trench Crusade are like all like very progressive liberal type folks and have like multiple like LGBTQ plus people who work on their staff and have like women and such. And so they immediately did like a mass ban of everybody from this Discord server. And like, but on top of this like thing, Trench Crusade was also very obscure when this all went down. And then everybody who follows the shitheads who get mad about women being in things found out about Trench Crusade. And now it's like exploded in popularity in like the sort of weird niche of people who like hilariously dystopian dark things like me.
Sort of a Streisandian bargain of like, hey, this thing sucks because it's too woke. And everyone's like, hold on, wait, what'd you say? What's this thing? This thing's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, and then and like this morning I like read like a 60-page lore primer that they made on it, and it's like one of the coolest things I've ever seen. So that's like an example of how you can fuck up extremely bad.
Okay, I get it now. I get why you've spent so much time. That was so long to get to the plot of this episode, which is that we also fucked up.
Yes, but we didn't fuck up that bad.
We didn't fuck up that bad.
See, we're back.
Jesus
We didn't lose a single beat. We are immediately back on our bullshit. All right.
We're back. This is a podcast. It's called It's Probably Not Aliens. Sorry for taking a break for so long. We had an episode that explained why we were taking a break, and then I took forever to edit it. It's still not out by the time we're recording this. So that is my fault for not having our messages. Who am I? Who am I even? Well, my name is Scott Nicewander. I know nothing, but that might change here in the future. I know at least some stuff, not about this episode, but about future ones, and we'll discuss. But that's my job, is I come in here and I learn. I'm a surrogate audience member like you, but I get to talk back. You get to talk back as well, audience, but Tristan can't hear you. He can only hear me.
I can actually hear you. My name's Tristan Johnson, and I hear all. If you yell really loudly into your computer, I can actually pick it up. It's pretty cool.
Excellent.
That's how I collect all these corrections. I don't actually look at the replies on Reddit or comments on YouTube or emails we get. I just pick up what people have been able to yell loud enough from their computers or their phones in order for me to pick it up. So if you think I got something wrong, I recommend that you yell, especially if you're in a crowded area. that like
shout it out.
Yeah, that's the main way to do it.
Shout it out. No context. Don't say this. Don't even, you don't need to address it by saying like, this is for Tristan, the thing I'm going to yell next. You don't have to say that. People will understand it. Yeah. And Tristan doesn't need that. He's not like a
I'll
personal
be in orbit,
assistant
like,
on your phone.
Like Hamel Camel, and listening to all the sounds of the world and honing in.
Yeah, you don't need a wake word. You just hear it, you know? This is a podcast where we talk about ancient astronaut theory and ancient aliens. And every once in a while, we get stuff wrong. And you all write in to tell us all the stuff we got wrong. And we're going to go over some today in a corrections episode. We like doing these because it helps keep us accountable and hopefully trustworthy a little bit. And also to let you know that we're not like necessarily scholars about the stuff we talk about. This is a fun entertainment podcast, but we still want to be informative in the right way. So people wrote in and told us some stuff we got wrong, or added some context to some stuff that we got right, potentially. I don't know if that's happening in this episode, but either way, it happens sometimes.
Yep. So like, that's the main thing that I try to go through is I've been collecting these over the months, and then we kind of bring them up and talk about them every so often. And I was thinking that since we are shifting to the seasonal thing, that a good way to keep us humble, to remember thou art mortal ourselves, is to start every season with, here's the ways that we fucked up. The typical way that I go about it is that I collect everything, and then I am sort of starting from the beginning of the show and working forward in a sort of eternal nonstop samsara of errors that I'm hoping that on a long enough time scale, I will have mined all of the old episodes for all of their errors, and we will be gradually moving forward through the show as it goes. So
fingers crossed. And I'm sure we can talk more about this next season of the show more at the end, but I want to get into some corrections. We've spent long enough.
All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is, I think the next few are all about episode 70. So the US keeps shooting down UFOs. Are they aliens? So this was, I think, the one where we were talking, I think this might've been the emergency episode that we did, where all if you remember back in like 2020, is this 2022? I think. Where like in the spring of 2022, there was like this weird thing where they were shooting down UFOs all over the, like, there was like
all over the place.
There was basically like a Chinese spy balloon that got shot down, but America didn't catch it for a long time. So they raised up their detection to smaller and smaller things, and then started shooting down like weather balloons and like scientific experiments and stuff like that. But the news was reporting on it as if they were like UFOs, and people were like freaking out about it. That was like the sort of thing that was going on. But of course, one of the common tracks of Tristan fucking up stuff is that I said a few things about military hardware.
Whoa, this is new. You never get that wrong, or say things that are very hyperbolic about military hardware.
Yeah. So I think this is even like picking up from some that we talked about in the last corrections episode. So I'll try to get a little bit into it. So basically, we were talking about how there was all sorts of violations of airspace that are happening, like how America is like violating Chinese airspace and all that kind of stuff. But that one of the things that that was brought up in an email to us as sort of additional context is that you also have a common thing of Russian bombers getting into American airspace, especially in Alaska. So in the last 20 years, you've seen cases of Russian military aircraft trying to fly in Alaskan airspace, but it doesn't really make it much in the news because the lower 48s don't really experience it, which is like fair, because also, you know, Alaska is the part of America that borders pretty close with Russia. So
it's pretty close. Very famously, there was a politician who said she could see Russia from her house.
Well, before we get another correction on that, that was a thing that Tina Fey said, being her, impersonating her on Saturday Night Live.
Fair enough.
But she said something about how, like, when she was questioned about foreign policy, about how close Russia is to Alaska. And it's not one of the wrongest things that's been said, because America and Russia have had a long and tense relationship. And if you think about it, Alaska being America's closest like borderland to that, and also its borderland to Arctic territory, which is right now a very politically contentious thing, which I think I'm just more aware of because I'm Canadian, and Canadian like Arctic policy is like a bit of a bigger deal for us. But because as the North Pole's melting from climate change, there's like potential oil exploration. There's like new shipping lanes opening up and like stuff like that, Russia and Canada and the United States and Europe are all sort of like trying to, they're trying to figure out what the new rules are, because it was kind of a part of the world where we were like, let's just kind of keep it chill about the rules about who owns what or where up here, chill. because like it's like frozen all year round, so like nobody really cares. But now that there's a shipping lane that might actually go like kind of like
new waters. It's the Wild West, but north.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, there's some really big things like that. For a significant chunk of the year now in the summertime, there might be a shipping lane that goes from the Atlantic to the Pacific, going through the north instead of having to go all the way down to the Panama Canal or around South America. So like that's a big deal for international
Huge
shipping.
Deal.
And there's some evidence that there's like, petroleum deposits and stuff like that, which, we should not be exploring because, we need to be getting off of it. No. But it is a thing that countries don't give a shit about. So they're going to go and get in.
No.
But yeah, Russia is does seem to fuck with U.S. airspace in Alaska. I mean, we've talked about on the show before. They do it with nautical, like ocean space too, and that finding foreign aircraft in other people's airspace where they're not supposed to be, kind of testing your defenses and stuff like that, is a fairly common occurrence. And so I looked this up and it turned out that this is true. Russian military aircraft, including bombers, have indeed been reported numerous times over the past 2 decades flying near Alaskan airspace. NORAD is the typical organization that, notices this and points it out. Mm-hmm. And normally they operate in the Alaska Air Defense Identification Zone, which is called ADIZ.
These nuts.
Which is this space that's designed to be like a buffer or like an early warning defense for North America.
Okay.
The thing, though, is that NORAD does not really consider these provocative unless they want to. Like, this is one of those things where like this is like shit that countries do to each other all the time. But like they don't really make a point about it unless they feel like they want to like get a dig on the international stage. So until America's mad at Russia, then
rally everyone up and be like, look at what's happening. We need to invest more in our own military for these sorts of counterintelligence sort of stuff or what have you. Like it definitely feels like everyone knows it's happening all the time, but when you need to drum up some publicity, it's easy to sort of be like, oh, hey, look, a new one. What are we going to do about it? We have to do something about this thing that's been happening forever.
Yeah. For example, just to give you like a context of it, the US on average probably intercepts a Russian jet about 6 or 7 times a year.
Well, to be fair, jets do have to be Russian because that's how they fly fast.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're Russian.
Yes.
Thank you.
I remember somebody showing a picture of a Russian MiG, which is like one of their fighter jets, where it was like collapsed and it had like its like front was like in water. And someone said, "Don't like laugh. Russian MiGs only drink like this when they're really upset or something like that."
This isn't funny. They only do this when they're really stressed.
Yeah. But the thing though is that this does happen. But that for because they don't want to create international incidents constantly, that the Russian aircraft do remain in international airspace. What they do is they enter into the international airspace that America is monitoring for threats. Basically, it's like the no man's land between Russia and the United States and Canada, where if the Russians were going to attack, if they were going to drop bombs on America, they would be setting those up. I know because Canada has a whole line of American radar bases in our Arctic called the DEW system, the Defense Early Warning System from the Cold War. And so, like this stuff all exists. Yeah. And it could be just one of the things in the emails that kind of implied the lower 48 states don't report on this because it doesn't affect them. And it's like, the main reason might be because it's just kind of routine and they're not really seen as a threat. And that the U.S. does similar flights along both Chinese and Russian coasts. Like it's a thing that countries that have air defenses set up against each other will be testing their enemies' air defenses routinely to see how fast it takes for them to react. It's sort of like I don't know.
It's like a game of chicken almost. Just like, how fast are they going to do it this time?
Yeah, it kind of
We're not going to attack, but we'll see how quickly they rally the troops.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things that like we don't think about in day-to-day life for, because we probably don't want to worry too much about how the world works. But like
Sure.
Countries are kind of always like not like in a lot of ways there's a lot of coordination and cooperation. But at the end of the day, every country is like also secretly trying to think through how they're going to defend and attack against basically every other country.
Right.
Like, especially countries that they have a tense relationship with, like America and China or America and Russia. But like, even like Canada had we had like a sort of military plan for what to do if America ever invades us. And we even had like at one point, I think there was, or very recently, there was like Canada's like long-term strategic forecast, like think tank put out a thing about like, how are we going to handle the fact that America seems to be closer to civil war than it's been in a long time? And how can Canada sort of prepare for that situation?
Oh, interesting.
So,
well, and to be fair, I also prepare for how I'm going to defeat other people on this podcast all the time.
Oh yeah.
I'm always thinking about what's going to happen if I got to take down Tristan, for example, as just one example.
You keep a kryptonite arrow around for this purpose.
It is true.
Every country is basically Batman, where even their friends, they have like a contingency plan for how to kill them.
Okay, who would win? Canada or America, but we get prep time? That's how the argument with Batman is always. Is it going to be Superman or Batman, but Batman gets prep time? Think about it.
The problem is that Batman needs no prep time because he is always prepped. That's his whole thing. That's that I don't remember what comic that's actually from, but that's his whole thing. Yeah,
that's his whole thing. Gosh, I'm such a fake fan for not remembering, but yeah, someone steals all the plans to take down all the Justice League. It's a good story. New topic.
Yeah. Okay.
Corrected. We corrected it.
Yeah,
that's my correction sound.
So the same person who mentioned it was a former F-22 mechanic. And so I mentioned...
So that sounds like your mortal enemy when it comes to you talking about military hardware.
Maybe, yeah. So this is a genuine mistake I made that I think that maybe there was like a mistaken like... It's one of those things where like I can tell that I probably constructed a sentence improperly, and if I had just slightly reworded things would have been better. So I think I might have mentioned on the podcast that the F-22 costs $10 billion to make, and that is like a partially correct statement. But
okay,
an F-22
really couching this one, huh?
Okay, well, it's like saying that the COVID vaccine takes like that the COVID vaccine took like $150 billion. It takes $150 billion to make. To make an actual COVID vaccine takes like 25 cents, but like the development costs like the billions of dollars. So the F-22 to design took $10 billion, but one F-22, like to construct one, only takes a measly $150 million.
And who doesn't have that laying around? You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's only
I've got a couple F-22s in my backyard.
Yeah, that's only like a measly 450 full ride scholarships to Harvard.
That is one of my favorite things you do, is compare all military pricing to scholarships to college.
Let me try to see. Let me get this through. So 150 times 3, because I'm just roughly guessing that an American, I'm just guessing a Harvard degree costs about $300,000.
Okay.
That sound about right?
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know.
How would I know?
Yeah, there would be 450 full ride scholarships to Harvard, if that is true. I'm sure that we're going to do a correction later being like, actually, it's only like 150,000.
Children.
Yeah. But yeah, it does actually cost about $80,000. The other thing too, I figured to add here is it costs about $80,000 and 40 hours of man hour in maintenance per hour that the F-22 is flying.
Okay.
So not only does it cost $150 million, but also
it's not a set it and forget it type of aircraft.
Every hour that it flies costs $80,000 and it takes 40 hours of maintenance to do.
Oh, okay. Well, at least that money's coming out of, I assume very rich people's pockets, right? I imagine.
Have you paid taxes?
Are you a cop?
No.
All right, I have paid taxes.
All right. Then, you partially paid for this then.
No!
And it also tends to use something called the AIM-9X missile, which each one of those to fire costs about $500,000.
Well, hopefully we're not firing a whole bunch of those.
I hope not too. But yeah, that's another, like, what's it called? 1.5 full ride scholarships to Harvard.
Great. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, so that's that. The F-22 Raptor is, it's expensive, is what I'm going to say. Each one costs a lot of money to develop. It costs tens of billions of dollars to develop, and each one is really expensive to build. And
sure.
The problem though is that figuring out how much these things cost is not publicly known because the military doesn't exactly say. So you have to estimate by various different metrics, and the estimations do put it at around $125 to $150 million per aircraft. Super
aircraft. Oh no,
Elmer Fudd is taking my aircraft. Why
do I have this aircraft when I should have gone to Harvard?
Oh god. And it costs about $85,000. Approximately $85,325,000 to fly.
Jesus Christ, it's so much.
Every time you get into the military, it's like everything's so fucking expensive.
Everything's so expensive. Why is it so expensive?
So yeah,
all right, is that a correction corrected?
Yeah, I think so. It was, I definitely misspoke on that one.
Did it. Doing
it. This one is somebody who said that I was awesome.
Oh, that's great.
So in this episode, I talked about Gavrilo Princip, the Serbian nationalist who assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand, and might have been would be a high contender for one person who had the largest impact on history.
For sure. Started a whole world war.
Yeah, so Gavrilo Princip, the man who killed Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914, there's a few misconceptions about him. One being that he was I didn't say that he was in the Black Hand, but the thing is that he was not. So this is the thing. So one of the common things you say is that he was in the Black Hand, which was this sort of secret society of Serbian nationalists. Okay. Now, the person who emailed me said that good thing for pointing out that he was not part of the Black Hand. And that is true. He was not a formal member of the Black Hand, but he was associated. He knew people who were associated with it. The Black Hand did provide Princip and other co-conspirators with weapons and training, but Princip did do the assassination of his own initiative. So it's while it's like how America does a lot of things to avoid, instead of killing somebody themselves, they'll just be like, here's a guy who really doesn't like this person. Here's a bunch of weapons and training. Have at it.
We don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah. The other...
we'll set up these dominoes, and if they fall, oh no.
Oh no. And then if they then use those dominoes to do 9/11, uh-oh.
Oh no.
The second myth is that Princip was... because there is, I think this is still verified, that he tried to assassinate him, but had trouble getting a place where he could do it. And then he was...
of course. I mean, that's pretty common. We've all had that problem too.
When you're trying to assassinate the Archduke of Austria-Hungary,
it's hard to find a place to do it.
Yeah. But there is this idea that he was having trouble finding a clear shot, and then he went and got a sandwich, and then while he was getting the sandwich, nice. the parade just walked right in front of him, and he was like, "Oh shit, okay," because he was about to call it a day, and then he did that. Apparently, that's a myth. And
that was a myth. Okay.
And I didn't mention that
it wasn't a sandwich.
Yeah. Apparently, it was popularized from a novel it started. The original idea that he was eating a sandwich when all of a sudden the Archduke came in front of him. Apparently, the only source of that is a novel that was later then popularized by a BBC documentary, but there is no actual historical evidence to say that he was eating a sandwich when the Archduke just showed up in front of him, like on a detour.
Yeah.
In fact, the only kind of evidence that you have is that he was near a food shop when he shot the Archduke. But there was no evidence of him eating a sandwich at the time.
No. People just putting 2 and 2 together. It's like Lee Harvey Oswald was just trying to rent a book.
He was just like, he was trying to think how to do it. He's like, I'm so mad. I'm just going to fire my gun out this window because I can't understand anything in this Texas school book.
I'm so mad that I can't get a good angle on this president. I'm going to go pick out a book about better ways to use maybe my voice to like to use that for change instead of this gun. So I'm going to go to this library and find out, oh, wait, there's the president. Actually, this is a great spot.
Yeah.
This is excellent angle.
And the CIA is like right there about to do it. And you're like, well, if you're going to do it, then I guess we don't have to. Bye.
Bye. Who's that guy in the grassy knoll? He's not with me.
Actually, the guy in the grassy knoll was about to do it. And then Lee Harvey Oswald did it. And he was like, oh shit, this is way better.
Mm-hmm.
Man, there's my conspiracy. But yeah, it's just one of those things where like you always need to look into historical narratives when you're doing something complex, like deciding like these little details. And I think that the little details can sometimes be very important, especially because a lot of this stuff comes up when you're trying to dramatize history and tell a story.
Absolutely. And this comes up, and I'm sure, I don't know if you've had an experience with this as well, but like, this is something that I don't mind doing in videos sometimes of like, we both make videos about a history. Yours is much more big picture history. Mine is more like, here's a fun story about a comic book creator. But sometimes I will dramatize like the events of something. Like I'll be like, I imagine he was like very stressed when this was happening. And so I'll like concoct a whole scenario. And like, obviously there's no way for me to know that. And I've tried to not do that as much anymore because I know that is a thing that people hate when you just sort of add some prose to something that we have no evidence of knowing how that happened or what happened in that instance. But it is common that people do that. And so I wonder if the sandwich thing is just sort of a byproduct of that, of just like, well, I don't want to just recount events. I want to tell a story.
It originally came from a novel. And I would say that if I found out that Gavrilo Princip did kind of happen upon the Archduke and that he was killed by a food shop, that if I was going to write a dramatized version of that, I could see a story of him being unable to get the shot and feeling distraught and then going and getting a sandwich. And then while eating the sandwich, watching the parade just pass by right in front of him. Like it's a good story that lines up with the details we do have and then adds a few more. Unfortunately, what happened, and I think this is like the big issue, is that then a BBC documentary crossed it over from a fictionalized account to reporting it as fact. And then like maybe, it's a minor detail that might not be super important, but then what happened is that this is like one of the most significant events of the 20th century. So and further,
for sure.
But furthermore, we're going to get into this later in the season, but like, these are the things you really need to look into. Like anytime something sounds like it makes an interesting story or a just so type narrative, I find that those are like the things you need to investigate the most, because those are the things that almost always end up being wrong.
That's true.
Yeah. Another goof 'em up I did on this exact story is that I referred to him as Gavrilo Princip in the episode, and his name is actually Gavrilo Princip.
All right, corrected.
Nice.
Done.
Okay. Let's think. Oh, yes. I referenced a story that I couldn't think of the name of in episode 71. So we're getting to episode 71 of the podcast was a Q&A, I believe that we did.
Cool.
And in that, I remembered saying
we got something wrong answering questions that people asked.
This is actually something that in the episode I talked about a short story that I had read, but I couldn't remember the name of.
Gotcha.
In which there was a species of alien that was really small, but that because they lived on the top of a neutron star, their time moved for them like multiple times faster, and so they like developed really, really fast as a civilization, because basically like time was moving way faster for them because they were on top of a star that was like where gravity was making time move differently. So somebody pointed out that that is a novel by Robert Forward called Dragon's Egg. And it is about the Chila, alien life forms about the size of sesame seeds who live and think and develop 1,000,000 times faster than humans, and inhabit the surface of a neutron star called the Dragon's Egg, which has a surface gravity 67 billion times that of Earth.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
There you go. That
you recommend it?
I thought it was good. It was a long time ago. I probably read it in high school, but
sounds good. Bing.
So this is now moving on to episode 72, which is, I believe, part 1 of our episode on Grahamcock.
Grahamcock.
Yeah. So Grahamcock. In that, I think I mentioned first when talking about the Sphinx and the pyramids, I think I mentioned that they were made of sandstone. And someone was very quick to point out that it was not sandstone, it was limestone.
Limestone. Yeah.
And that these were constructed using locally quarried limestone.
It's just confusing because there's so much sand around.
It's true. Sandstone is like, I think, a fairly weak stone too. It's like, because it's just compressed sand, really.
Right.
But the Sphinx is a limestone monument. It's part of the pyramid complex. The Great Pyramid of Giza was built with thick layers of limestone, able to support the weight of the pyramid, quarried at the Giza Plateau. So, but there's other stones too. Like, for example, the limestone that has this yellowish brown color was that was most of the pyramids were built with, the ones that we see today. So it's actually used just for the inner supporting core of the pyramid, because what we see today is not really the outer layer of the pyramid, which was a lot prettier when it was first built. So we kind of see the inside of it. And then the inner chamber is actually made up of reddish pink granite, which is a very dense, very hard stone that was probably found at Aswan, which is further south.
Oh.
And then the highest quality is white Tura limestone, which was used to make the outside of the pyramid, to cover up the less good Giza limestone. So this is like an example of, like, you know how everyone's like, oh yeah, the pyramids were made with like super high tech technology, where it's like they literally use the expensive limestone to cover up the less good one that they just use to kind of pack in the bulk of it.
So you're saying the stones that we see currently were originally like on the inside?
Yeah.
And the outside part is gone now?
Mostly, yeah. I think there's some of it still around, but it's mostly eroded away over the fact that these things are thousands of years old.
There's a joke in here somewhere, and maybe you can help me find it, but that is what we would call in the construction business a building that has good bones.
Oh, yeah.
And it also has good bones because it is a tomb. Or it was a tomb, I guess. I don't know if it still is, if the bones are there.
That's a good question. I think that a lot of the people who used to live in the pyramids of Giza either have already had their shit stolen, or they are in the museum in Cairo. I think that most of them, although I think there's also some speculation that there might be some chambers that we still haven't found, but
fair enough.
That would be pretty cool.
There's a big hidden one, right?
Theoretically.
A big hidden one under the earth?
I think that...
Isn't that a thing?
Yeah, I think that like some ground penetrating radar makes them think that that might be the case, but they have to do...
Yeah.
You can imagine that carefully digging around so much stone and making sure you don't disrupt anything or cause anything that will like cause structural integrity issues is
it's
expensive and long process. Yeah. So one of the interesting things though that came up while I was studying this is that there has been some debate over whether the blocks were carved from quarries or that they were cast like concrete. But that the consensus among Egyptologists is that they were most likely carved from quarries and moved to the construction site. But I was interested in what I was thinking, like, oh, quarries, what's it called? Concrete. Interesting. I'd never considered that. But that would, if that was the case, that's like another example of like how move big rock, liquid rock.
Here's the issue: is we've prepped the rest of this season already for the most part that we're going to record, and I have a sound bite I so desperately want to play, but I can't until we get to that episode. So keep all this in mind.
Yeah,
we'll always talk about how move big rock.
We're gonna just keep yourself what's the term?
Be on the edge of your seat.
Keep edging.
Edge
keep
yourself.
edging for the sound. What's it called?
Mm-hmm.
Keep edging for the sound.
We can help edge you, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
We're edging you right now.
Goon your way through this entire podcast season. Okay.
Anyway, corrected.
Bam. Okay.
Done.
Next one, we are in episode 74. Oh, this is just another correction. This is a correction. Okay.
Oh, this is a correction episode about a correction episode.
There you go. A meta correction episode. All right. So I might have said, I said in the episode apparently that Sanskrit is slightly connected to most European languages. And someone said, correction. Sanskrit is not just slightly connected to most the major European languages that aren't Indo-European or Basque, Estonian, Hungarian, and Finnish European languages. Sanskrit is fully a member of the Indo-European language family. It's about as closely related to ancient European languages like Greek, Latin, Proto-Germanic, and Proto-Slavic as those are to each other. It was key in reconstructing the Proto-Indo-European, as Sanskrit and ancient Greek seem to be some of the most conservative ancient languages that we know really well. So they kept a bunch of old grammar that other languages lost, also triggered the idea of Proto-Indo-European and modern theories of linguistic evolution and reconstruction being developed, because colonial linguists were studying Sanskrit and went, wait a minute, this looks suspiciously similar to Greek and Latin.
You know what I need on my soundboard now that I'm just sort of decking it out a little bit more? I need the Phoenix Wright objection, but I need it to say correction. And that's what we need. Yeah, correction.
So if you're who does the voice of that? Is that Sam Riegel who does the voice of?
I have no idea.
If
you're someone who can sound like it,
if you are Sam Riegel, who currently has nothing better to do,
apparently, hit us up.
He's one of the Critical Role guys, but I think he did the voice of a guy in that game series.
See, I don't know anything about Critical Role.
He played, I think the character, spoiler alert, I think the character died recently, but he played like a Ted Lasso inspired robot.
Nice.
Yeah, as somebody who's also played a robot in a role-playing game podcast, I'm sure you have a connection there.
I do. It's a very fun character to play. All right. Corrected,
yeah, because like a thing to point out is that, yeah, their common descent, I think I said that Proto-Indo-Europeans are common descendants of people today, but what they had is common ancestors. So Sanskrit is part of that language. Everything that was said was, as far as I can tell, correct, and that the discovery did lead to the development of modern linguistic evolution and such.
Correction. That's something, right?
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
Okay, the next part I got here is that radiocarbon dating can't date things that are millions of years old because it caps out at around 50,000 years, and that there are other kinds of radioactive dating that are for things that are millions of years old, which is...
radioactive dating is what I would call my love life.
In that you're happily married?
I'm happily married. Yeah.
Nice. This is true that you're happily married. That is a fact. No corrections
That
there.
is true. That is... yeah, correct.
Love you, Emily. I miss playing D&D with you. If you ever listen to this.
You don't love her as much as I do.
I agree. That is also a fact. Verified. So, radiocarbon dating, which is also called carbon-14 dating, is a method that we use to determine the age of organic materials, but does have an upper limit of about 50,000 years, because the half-life of carbon-14, which is the isotope that you measure, and that's about 5,730 years. So after about 9 half-lives, there's so little carbon-14 remaining that it becomes difficult to detect and measure accurately. So for things that are millions of years old, you use other types of also radiometric dating that are like potassium-argon dating or uranium-lead dating.
Well, we're never going to get to 9 half-lives. They haven't even done the third one yet.
Oh, get on that, Steam or Valve. They only did 3.
Suck it. I'm just playing around with the soundboard now. I'm so sorry. It's been so long since we've recorded.
I know.
I'm playing with my soundboard.
Stop playing with your board.
All right.
No, please. Otherwise, it's just going to be me info dumping for. We had too much of that. We did too much of that in the previous iteration of the show. So we need to have more. Fun.
All right. Okay. I'm having fun.
All right. Now, This is like a follow-up on, because I remember the correction originally, because I got in a lot of trouble over the space pen incident.
Okay.
If you remember
Right.
the space pen versus pencil thing,
Yes, it was like this sort of myth or like tall tale about like using spending all this money to make a pen, and then America spending all this money to make a pen that works in space, and then like Russian cosmonauts being like, we'll just use a pencil, something like that, right?
Yeah. While that isn't inaccurate, it actually, like, the pen was built for a like actual usable purpose, because the filings and like sort of crumbs of pencil that come off of a pencil in no gravity, where like short circuits and fires are like a major thing, actually is quite dangerous. So
it is dangerous. Graphite and like I'm pretty sure graphite is a conductive material. I could be wrong about
I think so,
that.
yeah, because they're trying to use it to make like thin sheets of graphene are being used to make all sorts of like electronics, or at least theoretically they're supposed to be used to make all sorts of cool electronics.
Let me look it up so we don't have to do another correction on a correction episode. You keep talking though.
Sure. So somebody gave me a little bit of point out that not only was the pen a good idea, but also like it was also an example of like they wasted a bunch of money to develop the pen. It turns out that they didn't even waste money developing the pen, but a private company actually spent the money to develop the pen. A guy named Paul C. Fisher, in his company, the Fisher Pen Company, reportedly spent about $1 million to make this pen that was designed to function in extreme conditions that included zero gravity, underwater, and temperature extremes. That was developed and then offered to NASA. And NASA was originally not interested in buying it because they had a previous controversy over their mechanical pencils being too expensive. But after extensive testing, NASA decided that the space pen on space flights were useful, and they started using them around 1967, purchasing about 400 of them for about $6 per pen, which today is like, I mean, I feel like I've paid more than for some pens that I have on my table here.
Oh.
But $6 in like 1960s money is a pretty thing. And then to even double down on how stupidly wrong I was, you know who also bought a bunch of these Fisher pens?
Tell me.
The Soviets. the Soviets bought 100 of these pens with 1,000 ink cartridges in 1969 to use on their Soyuz flights. And these pens have been on every crewed flight since Apollo 7. And it's a significant achievement that has been recognized by the Space Foundation as an innovation developed for space that now improves life on Earth, because it can write upside down, it can write in the water, and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. All right, I got inflation calculator pulled up. What year was that for the pen?
1967.
67. All right, that is, and it was $6?
Yeah.
Take a guess.
I'm going to guess that it's going to be something like $50.
Yours almost spot on, is $56.
Damn.
Inflation is crazy.
Yeah.
Also, and follow up, graphite is a good conductor of both electricity and heat. So probably something useful to keep out of your very fancy electronics that are keeping people alive in a place where humans should not be.
Okay. Well, there you go. Yeah, because I know that somebody won a really big prize for being able to make like graphene sheets that are like 1 molecule thick or something like that. And there are people who are theorizing that if you can roll these up into like little fruit roll up nanotubes, like carbon nanotubes are considered like, they're going to be like the material of the future. Like they're the only thing that we know of that has like the tensile strength to like potentially build a space elevator out of, if we could make them like, 100 kilometers long or whatever.
According to this, it is the only common non-metal that conducts electricity so effectively. So,
yeah,
interesting material sciences.
I have been told that graphite and graphene, which is I think the thin versions of it, is going to be a big deal in the future.
All right.
Okay, so next we're going to episode 75.
Let's do it.
Which was our episode on the Zone of Silence.
Oh, that was a fun one.
That was a fun one. Where we talk about the unintentionally created girl bosses. Wow. Okay. So the Athena RTV, which was the reentry test vehicle that dropped the radioactive material over the Mexican desert that caused the whole government to show up and dig up all the dirt and stuff like that.
All. Yep.
It was designed. So somebody pointed out that the RTV in Athena stands for Reentry Test Vehicle and was used by the Air Force for R&D of ballistic missiles. The Cobalt 57 in the reentry vehicle was a few tiny pellets. Cobalt 57 is commonly used for test sources, and in this case was used to track the RV. So they were using the reentry vehicle. They were using this to track where it had gone. And this turns out to be basically correct. Like this was the Cobalt 57 was a radioactive isotope that was used to in small quantities to track it. Because for example, during a 1970 Athena missile test, the reentry vehicle carried 2 small containers and was used to, like, they would use, like, you know, radiation detectors to find out where it was after it had crashed. So I guess they hadn't invented air tags yet.
Couldn't quite get there.
Yeah.
Didn't have the mighty brain of Stephen Jobs.
Air tags are one of those things that I'm, like, legitimately surprised they're legal. They've, like, the fact that, like, here are these devices, here are these little devices.
Yeah.
1, if you have an Android phone, can't detect them. 2, you can
That's
put them
changing.
on.
That's changing, by the way. Apple and Google are working together to make it. I believe it's already changed so that it can.
Okay.
They can detect it, but yeah.
But here are these things where if you're not looking for it, you wouldn't notice it.
Yeah.
They're small enough to hide in all sorts of places, like on someone's car or something like that. And you can use them to find wherever that tag is anywhere in the world. Like, that just feels like a thing that, like, is designed specifically for stalkers and, like, vindictive ex-boyfriends and stuff like that.
There's definitely some safety issues there. They put a reasonable amount of safety precautions in place. Like, if you do have, you know, I like I said, they're working with Android and things like that to make it pop up on your phone. I also believe if the owner is not around, it beeps a bunch. I believe that is the case.
Kelly has something like it that she got for her wallet. And every so often, like one time we were having dinner and all of a sudden we heard this beeping sound and we were like, what the hell is that? And it turned out it was her. I think it was like an off-brand AirTag thing.
I'm just looking up to see if there's like a page on apple.com for like unwanted tracking.
It does feel like it feels like a thing that should have had more legally figured out about it before it came out. Kind of like AI. Aha!
Aha!
Before just, like, you know, inflicting it on the people without any consideration as to its effects on things.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, I've got 2 more. Let's do that. Let's knock these out.
Hit me with it.
Okay, 1. Love the episode about Zona de Silencio. Thank you. Love you. I love things like that. I've been wondering if you guys had ever been going to talk about that. Technically, it's my own local weird place, but Chihuahua is kind of big, so I've never been. So this is what the person said. But to the important thing, my only potential chance to make a correction. Are you guys sure the Chihuahua ufologist you mentioned was Geraldo Rivera and not Gilberto Rivera? So I did try. This is entirely a Tristan fuck up. Because Gilberto Rivera, I met once, and he had his UFO research group here some years ago. So here's the thing. Geraldo Rivera, who we all know as I know he used to be on Fox News. I don't know if he is anymore, but he
got a mustache.
Yeah. And I know that he's done some UFO stuff in the past. And so Tristan definitely read Geraldo Rivera I read Gilberto Rivera, and my brain said Geraldo Rivera.
Changed it.
And then we cribbed off that for a little bit. And then it turns...
For a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
what it turns out is that it actually is Gilberto Rivera, who did have a group called GIFAE, or the Aerospace Phenomenon Research Group. They even had a radio show over 20 years ago. And that they did do, what's it called? That their field research trips consisted of going out and drinking until they saw UFOs.
Hell yeah. We should do that sometime, you and me.
That's true. Yeah, I was in Chicago again back in May briefly, and I was thinking about how much of a good time we had at that.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked this up and I was like, yes, Gilberto Rivera is the person that I was referring to. His full name is Gilberto Eduardo Rivera Altamirano, who was born in 1958 in Chihuahua, Mexico, which is the place where this all took place, has a degree in industrial production that he got from the Technological Institute of Chihuahua, and he is the current director of the Aerospace Phenomenon Research Group, which he started in 1983, and has been involved in various UFO and paranormal-related projects, hosted a television program on these topics, presented UFO cases on local children's programs, and conducted radio programs on UFOs and the paranormal. He also wrote about UFOs for the Heraldo de Chihuahua magazine and other state magazines in Chihuahua, Texas, and New Mexico. GIFAE has been involved in investigating various UFO cases in Chihuahua, so it seems that I did indeed done goofed.
That's okay. It gave us some content to talk about in this episode, and hopefully it wasn't so. We made it clear that it wasn't the Geraldo Rivera. We just thought it was someone with the same name. Right? Like, we didn't go through that episode being like, it's the Geraldo Rivera.
I think I might have, just because I do know that Geraldo has talked about UFOs before. So I thought it was a thing that he latched on to. But I definitely should have verified that first before we made bits about it.
Okay. Well, hopefully it wasn't too bad. Corrected.
Yay. All right, this last one, I will have to say, involves stuff that is not publicly published information. This is emails that were sent to us from somebody. So we'll have to take it with a grain of salt because it has to do with the David Childress Kennedy lawsuit.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
This was an episode that I led, and I couldn't find any information about this. It was like he was sued by, or he tried suing for information about I can't even remember now. There was so little information about David Childress's lawsuit with the Kennedy assassination.
But so
tell me about
a lovely listener named Erica, who has some, I believe, it's been a bit since I wrote this down, but because this was submitted in November of last year. But I believe that they have a bit of a legal background, so we're able to do more legal research.
Oh, thank you.
So here's the bit that I could get. So David Childress has had publications that have landed him in legal trouble more than one time.
No, David Childress? No.
So, or at least he's at least had one case that we have through. So in 1996, he published a bunch of pseudonymous, he published a bit of pseudonymous samizdat? The clandestine copying and distribution of literature banned by the state, especially formerly communist countries in Eastern Europe. Okay, so what he did is in 1996, he published pseudonymously basically information about the Kennedy assassination that was looks like it was still not for public release.
It was like classified or something?
Well, I don't know for sure, but the Erica mentioned it being samizdat, which is a term for secretly copying and distributing banned literature.
Wild.
So this was called the Torbit document, which mentions a man named Leighton Martins, a New Orleans jazz musician and ancillary figure in Kennedy assassination lore. The book accuses Martins of arms smuggling, stating that he was, quote, second generation Russian exile solidarist agent. Okay?
Oh my God.
Martins, who since died, sued Childress, but the case was tossed before it went anywhere because the statute of limitations had run out. Childress has quoted saying, "Once we won the lawsuit, we could joke about getting sucked into the Kennedy assassination."
Oh my God.
So that's what he got his lawsuit over, is this thing called the Torbit document. Where basically he was doing it because he said a bunch of things that were it sounded like he basically did libel.
I have never heard of this guy who was attached to it. Martins, you said?
His name is Leighton Martins. Now, I haven't heard the name specifically, but I do recall people talking about a New Orleans jazz musician being a sort of fringe figure in JFK assassination lore.
Wild.
This is like a very, very mild version of the kind of shit that Alex Jones is in trouble for, where basically when you're a conspiracy theorist about like real events that happen that have real people's names attached to it, and you're trying to attach real people to have them say terrible things, you are very likely to get yourself in hot water because you will say a bunch of stuff that would be equivalent to libel about someone. Like saying a jazz musician was a arms trader and was a Russian exile like solidarist agent.
Yeah. No. That's so wild. Well, like we said, we'll have to take it with a grain of salt because I don't think they, came in with any official documents or anything. But that, if true, gosh, I hate David Childress.
Yeah, that's a pretty scummy thing, and it just makes me even more happy about. I don't know if you saw this, but there's this video of Alex Jones who was like crying because he has to sell his ranch because he has to pay so much money to all of the parents of the kids who were murdered in a mass shooting that he like made their lives a living hell for like over a decade. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, gotta sell your ranch. Oh, you made too much money profiting off of the destruction and just horrible demise of others. Like, yeah, absolutely. Go fuck yourself.
What's it called? I'm gonna go to Western, the university in town here, and use their scanning electron microscope to nanotechnologically move some molecules around and construct the world's smallest violin in order to.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
someone's got to do it.
That's the corrections I got for this batch.
Corrected.
Yeah, corrected. And so we got a handful of things. I think we should probably first talk about the season. So
yes. So if you're listening this far into the episode, thank you so much. We are doing a brand new structure of this show, seasons surrounded by topics that are all sort of interconnected together. Really, it's sort of what Ancient Aliens, the TV show, does for every episode. But we are taking one episode, in this case, season 2, episode 6 of Ancient Aliens, and we are taking all of their claims and some others that are sort of in the periphery of it and breaking it down episode, one sort of claim per episode. And this season, in fact, I have a little teaser if you want me to play it. Not a teaser of us because we haven't recorded anything yet, but a teaser of the episode. If I could play it for you, Tristan. Mm-hmm. Here it is.
Space probes deep into the cosmos. Sound waves compelling solid objects to float in midair. Laser beams vaporizing targets with pinpoint accuracy. Are these stunning examples of mankind's modern technology? Or are they merely recent incarnations of scientific achievements that have roots stretching back to the ancient past?
And that's what we're talking
alien
about.
Tech.
Ancient alien technology. Now, I hear what you're thinking. You're like, oh, is this going to be a season all about science? Because we cover science sometimes on this show. There will be parts of it, I imagine, but it's still going to be a lot of what you love about the show. A lot of history, some religion, some culture, historical figures. There is some science stuff. There is, I don't know. Tristan has a better handle on it because he actually did all the research. But just looking at the list of topics that we have going on, it is a wide range of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got art. We've got the Bible. We've got Scotland. We've got an Alexander the Great episode.
Art, the Bible, and Scotland. The three greats.
We've got, and then we also have the story that inspired the show Stranger Things. So there's a bunch of like really cool little topics that we're going to cover. It's going to be about, I think we got about 12 episodes that we're going to do this season. This is one of them. So 11 more, including, I think we're going to do an RPG play episode and a Q&A. So there's a really cool season to come up with. And then once we're done, we'll then go on like another hiatus, hopefully a shorter one this time, depending on how my life works out. And then we'll come back and hopefully that will give us a way to keep the show going in a more sustainable fashion. And I will also mention that it'll help us to avoid some of the pitfalls that I felt about when we were covering Aliens and the Third Reich, because I thought that because we were doing it week to week, we found ourselves bouncing back to the same topics over and over again, which I thought was kind of repetitive. So this time we can take the whole thing and do it so that every episode has its own unique identity and has its own thing, so that we're not just kind of like doing, here's another thing that sucks. But
right.
yeah.
And I have a new job of actually programming stuff into the soundboard, like you just heard. I've got a bunch of clips already queued up of very fun things from the episodes and some other ancillary media that sort of ties into it. It's really fun. We're really hoping you look forward to the rest of this season in the future. And like Tristan said, you know, we're going to do these seasons and take small breaks in between to sort of reset and give, you know, Tristan time to research and me time to, you know, program the soundboard. Oh, it's so hard. It takes weeks to do, blah, blah, blah.
I mean, you're going to edit
also,
these episodes in a stack so that you're not like...
I do have to edit them too.
Because we were in a situation where you were constantly having to put NerdSync videos on hold so that you could edit an episode of a podcast, and that was really disruptive to your schedule. So we're going to make it so that you can just kind of switch into editing mode and have the whole season ready
I can
to go.
edit all of them, shoot them out, and focus on my actual job, because that is sort of the thing. We love doing this podcast. We don't want to stop doing this podcast, but we just need to make it more sustainable for us financially.
On that note, we have one more thing.
Yeah.
So
please,
this is
Tristan.
to kind of make the show a little bit more sustainable. We are starting up a Patreon. I set it up a little bit ago, and a few entrepreneurial people have actually found it without us even mentioning it at all. But
no, we've never tweeted it out or anything.
Yeah, but
some people just found it.
Yeah, some people have found it. But we are going to we have started a Patreon. It's going to first money that comes in uses to pay for things like anytime we have to like commission stuff, or you know, paying people to help us with episodes and stuff like that. Like things like so first thing it's going to do is pay for like things like editors and such, and then everything else would be...
It would be great. Can I just say, it would be amazing if we could just pay for editing.
Yeah.
Because that would allow, I mean, that would just keep the show going so smoothly. I edit most of the episodes and I like doing it, but like we just said, I have to focus on the videos that actually make money, because this podcast currently doesn't really make any money, but we've announced this Patreon, so hopefully it will. Yeah. And so that would be a massive, massive help if we could, you know, get some money in every month.
Yeah. So I have a little bit to talk about. We are going to have a dedicated It's Probably Not Aliens Discord server where, because we found out that the It's Probably Not Aliens channel on the NerdSync Discord has gotten so popular that we think it should probably be its own server at this point.
It should probably. It is like the most popular channel in my Discord server. It's always going off.
So we're going to make a Discord server for all of the potato patrons. And then we're also going to have you're going to get the ad-free early episodes, that's going to be a thing. And then also we're going to start making some those Q&As that we were doing very occasionally. We're going to make those episodes. We're going to make one of those every season, and the one this season is going to be open call, but then after that we're going to release them as a bonus, sort of paid bonus episode.
Yeah, just for patrons to ask their questions and for us to answer them and things like that.
And if you really want to go hardcore, there's a Yukon Gold tier where we'll do some thanks at the end of the episode.
We didn't explain this. They're all potato themed because of the fan base. We've decided to call you all. Well, you've all voted to call yourselves Space Potatoes, like Al the Space Potato. Yeah. So they're all potato themed.
Yeah.
Patreon tiers.
So there's that. Now, when it comes to money and stuff, other things that if you want to support this show, the best, like if you just want to support It's Probably Not Aliens and you want to support at like a specific level, like as little as $1 a month, that's the way to do it. If you want to support it in a more general way and also get access to a crap load of other cool content, including like there's like a science fiction movie coming out in a few weeks and all sorts of cool stuff. You can also just go to nebula.tv/probablynotaliens and sign up through that.
Oh yeah.
And you can get access to all of our bonus content that we do through Nebula and all of the really cool stuff that's just happening on Nebula. Either one of those are both amazing amounts of support for the channel, and we appreciate everybody who either signs up for Patreon or signs up for Nebula. Other things you could do is go to @ProbsNotAliens on Twitter, and I'll try to get back into Blue Sky. Blue Sky seems to not have really caught on as I thought it would, but we'll keep going.
We'll keep going. I try to post everything there that I post to Twitter anyway.
Yeah, or you can check out our channels, NerdSync and Step Back, which we both make content for. I guess
we do.
Oh man, I'm so out of touch that I haven't even looked up an old NerdSync video.
That's okay. We can save it because we've not. This is a bit of a long outro.
Yeah, sure.
The most important thing is that if you go, if you have the means to and you want to support us financially, that would mean the world to us. We've been not doing. People have been asking us to make a Patreon and things like that for years, and we've been not doing it just because we. I don't know. We just didn't want to split people between Nebula and Patreon and things like that. But if people want to support us directly more effectively, then that's a good way to go about it.
And now we also know that money is a thing that is in decreasing supply for everyone these days. So
yes.
There are ways to help out the show without spending your own dosh, like reviewing this podcast on whatever app you're listening to this on. That all really, really helps. There's a lot of podcast
Super
apps.
Helps.
Or just telling your friends. Podcasts tend to spread more through word of mouth than algorithms. So if you know somebody who, we used to say dads, and then we had a meetup and we found out that it's like Zoomers. It's like LGBT Zoomers, I think, is like our primary demographic.
Yeah.
So if you know an LGBT Zoomer,
we're recording this during Pride, so this is a great time.
Yeah.
To gift them the gift of something apparently extremely gay. This podcast.
And then if you want to push them onto a thing, you can go to probsnotaliens.com.
Yeah, that's where you can find links to everything, every place where you can listen to the show, places where you can follow us, and I'll put our Patreon up there as soon as I can do that, so people can find it easier as well. But I believe that is it.
That is
so. Until next time, where we talk about ancient alien technology. My name is Scott Nicewander.
I'm Tristan Johnson, and the truth is out there. I probably.
Where's my bell?
That was first one in 2 months, and I nailed it.
Flawless. It's like riding a bike. You just got right back on.
Yeah.
No notes.